Have you ever noticed that sometimes the harder you try, the more exhausted you become? Yet sometimes it still feels like everything that you're doing, it's still not enough. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. For most of my life, I was a person who believed that if something was worth doing, it was worth doing it all the way through. Not halfway, not mostly, not enough, but I wanted to always make sure that I was going above and beyond every single time. Whether that was when it came to my relationships, my job, my friendships, my kids, whatever it was, I always felt like I needed to give way more than what was requested of me. Do more and be more. And if I'm being honest with myself, I thought that it made me responsible. I thought that it made me caring. And I just simply, for a lot of reasons, felt as though that being that type of person made me a good person. But what I've started to slowly realize is that a lot of us aren't exhausted because we're doing too little. So many of us are exhausted for the exact opposite reason. We are quite literally doing too much. And a lot of what we're doing is too much of the stuff that doesn't actually matter, because we live in a culture that constantly tells us that we need to work harder, hustle harder, give more, sacrifice more, and just simply push through. But nobody really talks about the cost of constantly exceeding every single expectation. Nobody talks about what happens when your entire identity becomes tied to the person who always goes above and beyond. Because eventually you become tired. You don't become just tired, you become exhausted. The kind of tired and exhaustion that comes from just simply carrying things that were never meant to be yours to carry in the first place. And honestly, I had to come to one of those realizations recently while planning my daughter's birthday. Now, if you are a parent, you probably already know how easy it is for you to want to go overboard, especially when you love your kids. You want to give them the great memories and the things that you never had. And if you're anything like me, you can start convincing yourself that doing more means that you love them more. Last year, for my daughter's sixth birthday, I went all out. And when I say I went all out, I went all out. I planned this great big old day for her where she went to an indoor amusement park, had the villa for a water park that we stayed in. I paid for a hotel, all expenses paid for her, her brother and a friend and another parent. We did activities, we did all of the extras, and I spent an insanely ridiculous amount of money and wasted, well, I won't say wasted, and also an insane amount of energy. Now, do not get me wrong. All parties involved had an extremely great time. She loved it. She talks about it every opportunity she gets. In fact, what I realized is that in one of her little journals that she had to write in school, she wrote about that 3 times. So it's not that she didn't enjoy it, but also it was not necessarily something that she asked for either. And if I'm being honest with you, by the time that it was over, as much as I loved seeing her face and her brother's face and everybody else's face, when it was all said and done, I was exhausted. So this year I decided that I'm not going to do too much, but I'm also going to make sure that I do what it is that she has asked me to. For a second, my brain wanted to be like, that's it? No, I need to add some more. Maybe I can make it bigger. Maybe I can do a little better. Maybe I can just go and make this extra. But somewhere along the way, I had to realize, I had to understand that, was I really doing this to please her, or was I doing this to please myself? I had to learn that somewhere at some point in time in my life, that me wanting to go above and beyond what someone asked me to do was something that I then in return started to associate with the way that I love them, the way that I care, and the way that they perceive me. And so I had to stop myself. I said, this is not what she wanted. This is not what she asked for. And honestly, this is really, truly exhausting. So instead of trying to do more, I then asked, what if I stopped trying to create the perfect experience and just simply creating the experience that she asked me for? And so I said, well, that's too simple. But then I realized That's all that I needed to do. And so we'd like to do the things that nobody asks us to do. And so I had to understand that when we do these things, we are overcompensating because we overgive, we overperform, we overfunction, and then eventually and ultimately we become resentful. Because if I went and I did all of the things that my daughter asked for and did 20 other things on top of that, and when she was only simply content and happy, way beyond happy with me giving her the birthday party and the gift that she asked for and a sprinkle of a surprise, later on down the line, when I showed up with the unicorn that she didn't ask for and it's sitting in the back room collecting dust, I'm going to be upset because I'm saying you didn't appreciate that. I'm not going to buy you anything anymore because you didn't appreciate it. But the reality is she didn't ask for that. She asked for the birthday party. She asked for her friends to be there. She asked for the whatever gift. And the reality is, we become resentful in a lot of these situations, not because people are asking us for too much, but because we volunteered for responsibilities that were never requested of us. And I know that might make us feel uncomfortable to hear, but I had to learn this lesson seemingly the hard way for myself. Because if we are all being completely honest, which I am, this didn't just show up in my parenting. It showed up in my relationships too. Because ultimately, you're going to grow tired of trying to force things. And the more that you do that, the more exhausted that you will become. But here's something interesting that I learned and something that happened when I suddenly stopped. When I stopped trying to control everything and I stopped trying to manage everything and trying to make sure that every single person around me was happy and got everything that they wanted and they desired, and I realize that people will make their own decisions on their own, not because I forced them to, but simply because I stepped back. And I think that's one of the hardest lessons for people pleasers to learn. Sometimes your constant overfunctioning prevents you for seeing people for who they actually are, because you're always trying to fill in the gaps. You're always trying to compensate for something and rescue someone but when you step back, people are always going to reveal themselves. And some people, they are going to truly rise to the occasion. And maybe that's the lesson that I have been trying to learn for a very long time. Not how to do less, but how to do what matters. Because there's a difference. Doing less can be avoidance, but doing what matters is actually wisdom. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, maybe the answer isn't that you need to be doing more. Maybe the answer is getting honest about what's truly important. Because maybe there are things that you're carrying that were never yours to be carried. Maybe there are expectations that you're trying to meet that nobody even ever placed on you. Because there are standards that you are holding up to yourself that don't even actually serve you. And maybe, just maybe, it's time for you to put some of that weight down. So, I said all this to say this. You don't need to do more. You just need to do more of what actually matters. So change your mindset so you, my friend, can change your life.